Well, hello and welcome to Faith, Philosophy and Life with me, Mr. Shelton. It's great to see you again. I hope you're all doing well. I know this is going on for a little bit, but we're still working through our GCSE course on Judaism. Today isn't a lesson that's actually your final specifications, so today's lesson is more about context for you. More specifically, context in the city of Liverpool and the difference that Jews have made to the community there. But this would fit many other cities across our great nation. Behind me is an image of Lewis's, not to be confused with John Lewis, something totally different. But this was a huge independent department store in the middle of Liverpool city centre. And if you know the city at all, I'm sure you've gone past it many, many times. However, you probably never went in it because it's probably been closed after you were born. However, I do remember going in there myself, and it was absolutely massive. It sold absolutely everything. Why am I telling you about this? Well, it's because Lewis, who ran this department store and opened it, was an extremely wealthy man who was a Jew, and he funded a lot of Liverpool. And those of you that have seen images of the Princess Road Synagogue, he was a huge benefactor to that synagogue in Liverpool as well. So without any further ado, before we get into the lesson proper, grab a pen, grab some paper, and here we go with our cheesy intro music. Okay, so the image behind me then is an image of the timeline that we've been looking at already. It starts at Adam and Eve, through to Noah, through to Abraham and Joseph, and then they're in Egypt as slaves, and they escape through the Exodus, and then you get the Ten Commandments, the Promised Land, you get King David, there's the falling out with Solomon, and the tribes split, then you end up in exile, they return to Jerusalem with Nehemiah and Esther, and then they get exiled again by the Romans. And the Jews are probably in exile for, well, a long time, at least till 1947. You've got the horrors of the Holocaust that take place just before that. And so you end up with the Jews being scattered all across the world, including being in Europe. And the Jews then take a community within Liverpool within this time. So what we're going to do today is we're going to think about this big question. How is Judaism in Britain shown today? How is Judaism in Britain shown today? So that's our title for today's session. Our learning objective is to explore how the Jewish community has influenced Liverpool throughout the centuries and today. Now, the purpose of this lesson is to be a bridge between what we've learned through the Tanakh, what we've thought about the Holocaust, and how it is a living faith today in Britain. So that's really what we're thinking about. So what I'd like you to do is to get the title written down. Always useful to have the title. As we go through today's session, please feel free to pause whenever you need to. So our objective is to explore how the Jewish community has influenced Liverpool throughout centuries and today. A good outcome will be if you can explain the ways that Jews have been accepted in Liverpool. It's going to be great if you can put the information into an exam answer, because we are looking at GCSE, and even better if we can compare the information that you've learned to the Jewish chronology in the Tanakh as well. So we're going to need to think back over the past few lessons. During today's session then, there's a media clip, we're going to do a little memory thing, then there's a marketplace from 1 to 10, an exam question and a review as well. And you can see behind me that we're at the Judaism Today bullet point. That gives us one more section in this little mini series, which is the covenants, and that's all the background that you then need before we start looking at Jewish practices. Before we move on with that, however, I just want to think slightly more global. This is an image of Judaism in Australia. So, okay, it's just down the road from where we're doing our lessons, no doubt. That's a little bit sarcastic. But you can see that Jews are spread across Australia. Don't forget, Australia is absolutely massive. And a lot of Australia is the outback where nobody lives. So that explains the concentrations that you see around the edges where there are the majority of the cities. So I've got a little clip for you to watch from Strictly Orthodox. I'd like you to watch this now. I found this on the internet. Okay, it's about Australian Jews. but it's about how one section of Jews assimilate or work within Australian culture. And then we're going to compare that with Liverpool, and we'll see that it is somewhat different. So here we are, random clip from Australia. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hidden in the heart of Melbourne's latte society lives a secret religious sect. An ancient Jewish community whose traditions date back to biblical times.
Just because the world has changed, we haven't changed.
Its followers are ultra-orthodox, ultra-insular and ultra-strict. Not just in their dress code, but in every facet of their daily lives. To outsiders, their ancient rituals may appear strange, but these strict religious practices dictate their daily lives.
5 seconds left.
And are at the epicentre of their faith. Steeped in piety and prayer, they're proudly self-sufficient. Strictly segregated by sex, they marry within, and for the most part, shun the trappings of the modern world.
No devices in this house, except for my telephone, nothing.
Like a community lost in time, their strictly Jewish world revolves around their sacred synagogue.
Their clothing may be weird, but we don't think we're mad at all.
Now, for the first time, television cameras have been allowed inside this closely guarded sect.
Don't film this is embarrassing.
But not everyone is happy about it. Welcome to the secret world of Australia's Adass Israel community.
Okay, so I think that was quite an interesting clip. When I stumbled across it, I definitely thought that was a little bit different than what we see in the UK. There are certainly elements of ultra-Orthodox people. You'll see that in Manchester and parts of London. But in Liverpool, however, that ultra-Orthodoxy isn't really there to the same extent. So behind me then is an activity that normally I'd put on the screen and then take off the screen and ask people to go back to their tables and write down bits they can remember. But this is all information about Judaism in Liverpool today. There is a school which has a Jewish foundation in the same way that the school that I'm at has a Catholic foundation. The King David School has a Jewish foundation, obviously named after David, the greatest king in Jewish history. There's the information about David Lewis, and we started thinking about that. There's a tweet from Liverpool Football Club there. There's information about Jewish synagogues, and if you've not done any investigation into synagogues in Liverpool, do have a look at the Princess Road one. We will come back to synagogues later in the term if we're still needing to do these. The first synagogue in Liverpool was a converted house, and 1700 was approximately the year when Jews first came into Liverpool. So what I'd like you to do is make a few notes from some of those if you so wish, or take it off the screen and see what you remember. So either way, pause this clip, either minimize the screen, write down what you remember, come back to it, or give it a go just by making a couple of notes down, because we're going to be making a few things today. We've said then we'd explore how a Jewish community has influenced Liverpool throughout the centuries and today. So hopefully you've got some ideas now, or at least a little bit of idea about that. The next thing then that we're going to do is I'd like you in your book to number from 1 to 10. Okay, number from 1 to 10 in the margin, leaving probably 2 or 3 lines between each of those numbers. So 1, miss a couple of lines, 2, miss a couple of lines, all the way down to number 10. So if you know Liverpool at all, there is a museum in the centre down by the docks called the World Museum. And at one point they did a display or a museum exhibit about how Jews had influenced Liverpool. I thought it was really helpful. So what I've done is I've screen captured some of those, and I'm going to put those on the screen. What you need to do is you need to write down one bit of information from each slide in your own words. Okay, now there is additional information in the link below in the description, which will help you as well. So if you click on that, that will give you some additional information as well for further reading. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put some information behind me like this. You'll need to pause it, and then you will need to write down one little bit of information next to each section. Obviously put it in your own words, because copying isn't going to help you learn. So this is number 1. You're going to just need to pause this. This is number 2. This is number 3. And number 4. This is number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. And number 10. Okay, so hopefully now you've completed the marketplace from the 1 to 10, and we're going to now start looking at the exam question. Hopefully you've identified and seen some of the ways that Liverpool has been influenced by the significant Jewish community that it has had in the past. If you haven't yet had a chance to look at that additional document, please do so. So this is our question for you to think about. We're not answering this question. This is just for you to muse about. Some of you might want to make a few notes. How would Liverpool be different if Jews didn't live there? Now, this is obviously weighted towards Liverpool City. However, in the area that you live in, there may well be a Jewish population. If you're not sure, do a quick Google and just have a see what the census told you from 2011. Compare it to 2001 as well, and you might get some interesting statistics. Now, most exam boards do require you to know a little bit about the census. It will probably have been covered in another unit rather than Judaism. However, if you're not sure what the Jewish numbers are, do have a quick look. So how would Liverpool, in this instance, be different if Jews didn't live there?
So this is a really straightforward 4-mark question. All you need to do is do 2 points that are expanded. So 2 one sentences won't do here. Use all your knowledge and remember to read the question fully. If it specifies that you need to talk about influences, say how this concept changes a believer. Give yourself 4 minutes to answer this question. Try and write in a full paragraph and make it as cohesive as possible. Pause me now while you give this a go. Okay, so let's see how this is marked. The first thing you need to do is to work out if you've answered the question. Is your topic information correct? If it is, then you gain 1 mark per short point, and then a 2nd mark if you've expanded your thinking. Again, if you've been asked to include an influence, have you done it? If not, your mark will be limited to a maximum of 2. So give yourself a mark and just check what targets you could set yourselves for next time.
So we said today we would explore how the Jewish community has influenced Liverpool throughout the centuries and today. So we said a good outcome would be you could explain the ways that Jews have been accepted in Liverpool. Great if you can put that information into an exam answer, and even better if you can compare that information to the Jewish chronology in the Tanakh. And if you've referred to Abraham in that final question, you are definitely on the right pathway. So I'm going to close it there for the day. May I thank you very much for your time. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, wash hands, God bless, and I'll see you soon.